Hi, Day.
Good evening.
Hi.
Welcome, everyone.
Let's see. I know we're going to have a bigger crowd than this. Hi, Dr. Moser. Okay. Oh, you're muted.
Oh, I'm
There we
unmuted.
go. There we go.
My cat away from the computer.
Ah. All right.
Here.
Let's do that.
How's your weather?
It was 70 today. Can't complain.
That's right. I totally forgot.
Yeah. We are only here for about 12 more days. I'm a little sad, but I'm trying to think positively about the beauty of the snow, right? And the cold.
Talk about being jealous.
Mallory,
Yes.
can you handle the agenda item dealing with the weather days?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. When we get to that. Thank you.
Mhm. Okay. How's the weather there? I ask sincerely.
It's not bad. It's Wisconsin. It's in January.
It's been pretty mild, right? Mild.
Yeah, it's not bad.
Okay.
I don't know what the temperature is. What is it in is it the 20s, 30s?
Hmm.
30 and cloudy.
It is cloudy, that's for sure.
So I know it's 5:30, but Andy is logging on now.
So are you an hour ahead of us, Danielle?
Behind. I
Oh,
think,
okay.
right?
Okay.
It's 5:30 here. It works with my wife's schedule, but I get tired when we get to the later end of these things.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Andy.
Hello.
How are you all?
Good.
Wonderful. Well, I would expect maybe some more people to show up, given the nature of the meeting.
Yeah, which is why I was wondering if we should give another minute or two, or
Yeah, let's do that.
okay. Sounds.
Keep in mind that we have another meeting following this.
Yes, at 5. Well, what is it? At 5:45 your time. Oops.
Yeah.
Oops, sorry. Kidding. Okay.
So you're the chairperson.
I am the
so-
chair for that, and I believe most of the administrators will be also joining over there. But I did let some community members know of our committee that it may be, hopefully we'll keep everything in time. So
And we have a football game tonight too.
football game.
National championship tonight.
Oh, I only follow the Packers. I just, but we'll keep it in mind. Well, we have 16 participants. So if I'm chairing the meeting tonight because Molly cannot be with us, but I'm going to be looking to Andy for some logistical support here, right?
You'll
Procedural
be
support.
ready.
Okay. Do you think we should start, Andy?
Yeah, I think so. Why don't we get going?
Okay, so we will call this meeting to order and we'll do roll call. Andrew Franklin.
Here.
Danielle Bailey is present, and I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
And I will second.
That
That's
would be
it,
you.
right? It's approved. And
Yeah.
we will get right into it. Our first item of business is 2020-2021 reopening of school discussion. And I would invite Dr. Moser, if you want, to introduce this topic. And then I know the building leaders will be offering a presentation. And then I think the committee members we can engage in discussion or question and then invite participation from the public after that.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I appreciate the opportunity to speak to the agenda item A under new business, the 2021 reopening of school. What that is referencing is that the school board has asked me to plan for the reopening of school. What that means is the board wants a plan in place so that if and when they direct me to reopen the schools, that we're ready. So I've requested that the three principals, Ms. Young, Ms. Umar, and Dr. Smith, chair this effort at putting together our reopening plan. And I have to say, they've done a very good job of working on this. So, as you stated a few moments ago, with your approval, Madam Chair, I would like to ask the three principals if they could share with the curriculum committee our planning efforts and thoughts on a reopening plan as of January 11th. We don't have at this particular point, we are not coming to the committee with a recommendation on the reopening. But we felt that it was important that the curriculum committee hear what we have been doing and ask questions or make suggestions to us on this topic. So with your approval, Madam Chair, if I could turn to the three principals and let them take it from here.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Hello. Just want to introduce sort of our planning a safe return to school and some of the things that we're doing to gather stakeholder input and collaborative planning around that. So I will turn over to Ms. Umar to be able to introduce our committee chairs.
As shared in December, Dr. Moser named Ms. Young, Dr. Smith, and myself, Ms. Umar, as the committee chairs for the school reopening planning process. And we've had the opportunity to collaborate and meet regularly since then to engage in this work. And we would just like to start by naming this, but also inviting the community to reach out to us if at any point during this process, during the reopening planning process, there are questions, suggestions, thoughts, and feedback. We are open to those, and so please do not hesitate to reach out.
So the administrative team believes, as well as realizes, that a large part of the planning process involves input from various stakeholders, such as the staff, the students, families, and community members, and that walking through this reopening planning process is really about being a very collaborative process. So it's important that we have the opportunity to be able to hear questions, considerations, insights, and perspectives from diverse groups of people. So as we move forward in this planning process, we want to encourage you to be able to use your voice, to be able to provide us with input. And we also want everyone to note that your input is valued.
Consideration of the potential reopening is a process that must consider all the facets of reopening, which includes staff planning, student learning, social emotional well-being, and health and safety for all. To engage in this planning effectively, the committee sought to plan backward from trimester 3. Based on stakeholder input through this process, we recognize that we may need to move this up, move it back, or continue in our virtual learning model. Our goal is to compile a thoughtful recommendation to Dr. Moser that, based on stakeholder feedback and the health and safety of everyone, Dr. Moser will then have an opportunity to revise the recommendation before taking it to the school board for a vote. Based on the aforementioned timeline, we developed a workflow to include cycles of feedback for ongoing revision. The work around school reopening started in the summer of 2020, and our work as committee chairs, we reviewed this work, and in December, we presented to both the staff and the community the intent to re-engage in school reopening dialogue. Today, we are seeking the input, or this last week, we sought the input of our staff. And during this upcoming week, we will replicate that same process with families and community members. A board presentation with community input will also take place, and stakeholder input will then be compiled and shared with the North Shore Health Department to determine what is safe to be considered so that reopening recommendations can be refined for another round of staff and community input. Additionally, we will be looking to get some soft survey data and other survey data for our reopening recommendation based on our collaborative work for review by the North Shore Health Department. Based on the health department's feedback, a recommendation will be revised and finalized for Dr. Mosier to review and edit. Dr. Mosier will then make his final recommendation to the school board for vote in the beginning of February.
So last summer, we had the opportunity to participate in committee work related to curriculum and instruction, social emotional, and health and safety. There were some great discussions and work that took place last summer to help us prepare for the 2020-2021 school year. I'm pleased to announce that the same 3 individuals will continue to facilitate discussions and elicit feedback during our community input sessions. So Ms. Jenica Westfall, who I know is on our call this evening, is going to continue to facilitate the curriculum and instruction committee work, while Dr. Shannon Kilton is going to continue to facilitate the social emotional committee work, and Jim Beckman will continue to facilitate our health and safety committee work. We wanted to have a framework that grounds our work and that allows us to elicit the same kind of feedback from our various stakeholders. And to do that, we're asking each committee to generate ideas and feedback surrounding the following guiding question. So if the Glendale-River Hills School District were to reopen for in-person learning, what considerations would need to be made? It's important to also recognize that when we started this work, we assured families that should we return in person, families would have the option to remain virtual. And we want to ensure that we continue to honor that option.
On Friday, we had the opportunity to participate in our first round of staff input sessions. There are pictures here of some of the work that our staff engaged in. We had a combination of whole group, small group, and breakout sessions, and staff members were able to share their thoughts verbally, but also using digital tools such as dot storming and Jamboard. We also followed up with an exit slip survey from staff to make sure that we captured all of the themes and any lingering items that perhaps were not reflected in the conversation. We'd like to take some time now to review the work that was done and share some of the common themes from each of those committee input sessions. Here are the themes that emerged from the Curriculum and Instruction Committee. We framed these themes under assets or strengths of our current model and considerations for in-person learning. So some of the assets that staff have identified from our current learning model that perhaps we would like to make sure is included in our sort of planning for in-person learning includes the consistency of virtual instruction. We have been consistent for our families, consistent for our staff members by providing the current model. And so that is something that staff members identified as a strength. Staff members also really appreciated the team collaboration and planning time that is currently built into the schedule. Teaching during the pandemic, teaching in this way is new. And so that time for collaboration, professional development, and planning time has been used and valued. The virtual schedule currently offers some opportunities for one-on-one time with students and office hours, which were not in the schedule previously. And so having the opportunity to continue to engage with students and families one-on-one and having that built into the day was something that staff members have really enjoyed. To that same extent, staff members feel like right now we have strong family school collaboration and communication. There are systems, including classroom newsletters and different opportunities to get involved. Staff members feel as though they are regularly communicating and working alongside families during this time. There have been some additional opportunities for social emotional lessons that staff would like to see continued. For example, building in time for morning meetings and making sure there is sufficient time to have that relationship building and social emotional time in the schedule. And staff members also really appreciate everything that we've learned over the course of the last year with virtual tools. We're using Zoom, we're using Jamboard, we're using all of these different tools that we can continue using in different ways in the future. And also the opportunities that come along with it, the opportunities to have artist visits and author visits and sort of come together around virtual field trips. As we look towards considerations and questions and wonderings from the Curriculum and Instruction Committee, there are questions about the schedule for in-person learning that has not been built, and that will look very different than our current schedule. There are some questions and wonderings about the safety of staff members who serve students in multiple grades, thinking about our paraprofessionals, allied arts teachers, interventionists who work with students between classrooms and between grades. Our special education teachers have seen some success in providing services. So wondering what that might look like once all of the students return and perhaps are placed across multiple classrooms. We have a substitute shortage in the state of Wisconsin, and questions regarding what will that look like if a teacher needs to quarantine or if there are multiple teachers out. We know that returning in person, things will look different. And so staff members have some wonderings around classroom practices that incorporate social distancing. For example, in our K-4 classes, we run a play-based curriculum. How will we continue to do that? How will staff members continue with learning centers and conferring and some of those closer opportunities, gathering for morning meeting? Staff members have wonderings about managing in-person and virtual instruction simultaneously and if that will occur. And recognize the need for changes to pacing guides, knowing that there will be some additional time needed to be built in for things like transition that maybe we did not have when we did not have to social distance. And another trend was the need to gather data from families and staff members throughout the process so that we can make some informed decisions.
The staff feedback and trends from the Health and Safety Committee followed the same pattern of looking at what current areas are we seeing some strengths and what considerations might need to be made in an in-person learning setting. Some of the assets that staff felt in terms of having the limited students on campus that we have, as well as staff, is the required masks, the continued use of virtual meetings for staff members. Our drinking fountains are closed and only access to bottle fillers. Frequent cleaning of high touch point surfaces, and the propping doors or windows to increase fresh airflow within the buildings. Considerations that the staff had and areas of concern were around the areas of ventilation, particularly getting enough fresh air exchange, purifying air, and having filtration that would be sufficient in mitigating COVID-19. Also, disinfecting and cleaning was a large themed area in which staff noted the need for automatic hand sanitizing stations, students to have individual hand sanitizers, increasing the presence of hotter water for hand washing, disinfecting curriculum materials, having individual desks for social distancing, creating fewer touch points throughout the buildings, and being able to disinfect playground equipment. Health protocols were another area in which staff expressed the following considerations. What will screening look like? Will we have temperature checks? Will there be clear steps for students who come to school ill or become ill at school? Will there be discerning criteria for our health and staff to be able to understand what is COVID-19 and what may be other illness? Access to child-sized masks for younger learners to make sure that they can keep them appropriately placed on their faces. plans for students who refuse to follow safety protocols, questions around the timeliness of vaccination for staff, protocols for students and staff making travels outside of our state and country for when they return, frequent updates from the district nurse around contact tracing. Another area that impacted their thoughts and thinking was our scheduling. Being able to increase outdoor times, limiting students in classes, limiting teachers in and out of classes or grade levels or across buildings for servicing students, keeping a potential asynchronous day for more cleaning and collaboration, being able to adjust the curriculum or materials to limit the sharing of resources and materials by students, and then the logistics around being able to maintain any childcare options for families that select a virtual option because it may include movement between buildings. Transitions were another area of concern. How do we limit entry and exit of student groups by using multiple exits throughout the building? Also having staggered transitions, particularly at the middle school when students transition classes. Being able to control students gathering before or after school, signs within the hallways for one-way traffic, and also finding ways to reduce the number of transitions throughout the school day. Transportation was another larger theme, ensuring that students remain masked on the bus, that there's appropriate cleaning happening on the bus because we contract with Rightway. And so we wouldn't have as much direct control over those things. Ensuring that there's social distancing and seating charts within the bus for contact tracing.
And the social emotional committee also followed the same process and format. So when we think about assets related to social emotional supports, we talked about the fact that there are a lot of virtual resources that are provided to the staff and to families as well as to students. Um, we also talked about the parents and SEL professional development. So we currently have a social emotional learning committee that consists of Mr. Steve Tilley and Mia Kreider Tatum, our school guidance counselors, Denise Davis, our school social worker, Jess Schaaf, our district behavioral support and SEL coach, and Dr. Rodriguez, our school psychologist. All of those individuals are a part of the SEL committee, and they've really done a lot of work around this area along with our classroom teachers. But it is important to note that the SEL committee members put together a series of videos that they shared with families within our Glendale community. Also, programming. Steve Tilley and Dr. Rodriguez at Parkway offer connection corners, and that's the opportunity to have a Zoom session per grade level in which students, it is optional, but students can log on and have that peer interaction and conversation, as well as socially engage with one another. There's also snack and chats that take place with that same concept. Feel free to bring a snack or lunch and to chat. We also continue as a district to send out SEL resources to families and to staff members. There's an SEL website that has been developed. This year, there's an emergency grant fund that was developed, an opportunity for us to come together and to support families in need during this time frame, whether it's financial assistance to help with perhaps a bill or to pay rent or to provide food for a family. So there are various ways that that funding is being dispersed to families to continue to support our families within our Glendale community. There's also virtual toolkits that have been made available, and a lot of small group sessions and small group supports being offered by both classroom teachers as well as our SEL staff members. When we talk about considerations, one thing that really stands out is right now, I feel like the staff within the district are very appreciative of how transparent, not just this process, but how transparent things have been going under Dr. Moser's leadership. And I just want to say that one of the things we talked about with the SEL committee is how do we keep that transparency and open lines of communication surrounding COVID going as we look at the possibility of transitioning to in-person. Also under considerations are safe spaces for staff to continue to share concerns. There was a discussion around, is the way to go by providing staff members with anonymous surveys or perhaps small group supports in which you're meeting with individual grade levels or individual teams to continue to get feedback from individuals, and just how important it is to have a safe space. Staff also talked about the flexibility for staff work expectations. The staff has been very appreciative to those opportunities when we have some of our Fridays where they have the opportunity to work from home, and they're just wondering about continued flexibility in the future. Also, strategies for comforting students upon return to in-person learning. I think it is important to note that one of the discussions that we had here focused in on, and I'm going to use the elementary school as just an example, because as you guys are all aware, in elementary school, our students really have one teacher throughout the majority of the day. And if we did return to in-person learning, the impact to some of those classrooms may be that it looks a little differently depending on how many families would choose the virtual learning option. Because obviously, if indeed we did reopen and come back in an in-person setting, there are still families that would want to have their children have the option to learn virtually, which means we may need to look at how we shift around some teachers, which would ultimately then shift around some of the students within the classrooms. So there was a big discussion around that and what that could look like and feel like for students and for staff members. Also support for students and staff's fears around COVID. Strategies for students to have fun and continue to connect with peers. Continual movement breaks. How do we fit that in when we go a full day with some more of those curriculum pieces? How do we ensure that we're also giving students much needed movement breaks? And then finally, support for students that perhaps struggled during virtual learning.
This afternoon, families received an Infinite Campus email blast with an invitation, again, to participate in the committees. However, this time we have included the Zoom links. Those families who registered received a personalized invitation as well this weekend. So families will be able to click directly on the Zoom icons in the invitation that was sent today in order to access any of the community input sessions that we are hosting next week. As shared earlier, in addition to capturing some verbal feedback, we also are planning on collecting written feedback in a number of ways. We are giving exit slips after all of our reopening committee community input sessions. So with our staff, with the committee, just to ensure that all voices are captured and any lingering items have the opportunity to be expressed. As shared earlier, there are a few rounds of surveys that we plan to distribute, surveys to families and staff members, capturing thoughts, feelings, and intentions along the way. All of this feedback will help us triangulate the data from the verbal sessions to the exit slips to the survey data and just other information that we receive along the way in order to make informed decisions and planning.
So community input sessions. Last week, we held our staff input sessions with the social emotional teaching and learning and health and safety committee meetings. We also had a meeting with the North Shore Health Department. Dr. Moser met with them. And today we are presenting at the school board curriculum meeting. And later this week, we will be hosting the following community input sessions. On Wednesday, January 13th at both 2 p.m. and 6 p.m., we will be hosting a health and safety committee session. And then on Wednesday, January 13th at 9 a.m. or 5 p.m., we'll be looking at the social emotional support input session. And then curriculum and instruction will also be held on Thursday, January 14th from either at 12:45 or at 4:45. Additionally, we will be releasing some family and staff soft surveys to get some initial feedback so that we may begin to think about what our potential numbers of families who would like to remain virtual and staff just preference around learning models.
So after walking through today's slideshow presentation, we're wondering if the board has any additional questions or feedback for us.
You know, I always have some questions, but I want to say thank you for that presentation because it answered a lot of the questions I had about related to specificity of the process and timing and that sort of thing. So I think if Andy doesn't mind, if I just put out some of my comments or questions first, are you okay with that? Yeah, okay. So I wanted to just confirm, it sounds like that timeline, recommendations for changes, if any, to our reopening plan, the goal would be to make those at our February 20th school board meeting. Was that an accurate? Okay. And then depending on what those suggestions are and how the school board would vote, that is then when building and staff readiness would begin, provided that, say, we do implement some changes. Am I understanding that process, that timeline? Anyone?
I'm sorry, I'm got to jump back into the timeline that's there. My apologies.
That's okay. No, yeah, because it was like a round of input, make some plans, another round of input. And then I think somewhere in there, though, it was begin readiness or preparations potentially.
Right.
And then it was the school board meeting. So I'm just wondering when that would begin.
Right. So this first week is our first round of input. And then we move back in to our second round of input will not be next week, but the following week. So I believe that's the week of January 25th.
Right.
And then if I am not mistaken, there is a school board meeting on February 3rd where we bring that preliminary recommendation and then it would go for final vote on the 20th, I believe.
So that would maybe be a committee meeting probably on the 3rd.
Yeah.
It'll be your curriculum committee meeting. Yeah.
Okay. So I understand that. So honestly, I think you guys answered a lot of my questions around specificity. I appreciate that we are seeking community and staff input. I know that is key, but the other part of this for me is data and how we will utilize and incorporate that data. And I know that it is now, I think it is plentiful out there, and we have these neighboring school districts and school districts everywhere that have been reopened. And so I guess I'm wondering, I'm assuming, and just want to confirm that we are, and that will be part of these presentations, this data around risk, transmission, staff preparation, readiness, sort of all of that. I'm assuming, so I just want to confirm.
Yes, Madam Chair. Tomorrow evening, Dr. Kilton is going to be giving her regular report of every 2 weeks, and that data will be continuing to be used and will still be part of our discussion. Also, there will be data concerning things such as the vaccine. That was part of my meeting with the North Shore Health Department, discussing that aspect of a reopening. The COVID-19 stimulus bill, the second bill, we're looking for data and information on how much we'll be receiving in resources to help us with the reopening, when and if that decision will be made. There are some things, Mr. Franklin and Madam Chair, that we can start sooner than, let's just say, if you vote on February 20th and you say, Moser, you're to reopen. We don't necessarily have to wait for some things. In fact, we probably can't. We should be talking with our bus company, our transportation ahead of time. Discussions with the the health department, with our food service. And there are going to be some things that we need to do ahead of time and have them ready, whether you do or you don't direct that we open. But we want to have a plan in case you do say you want us to reopen. And we want the plan to be one that we've learned from other districts, we've learned from the research, we've learned from the data, and we will and we should learn as time has gone on what works and what doesn't, what's in the best interest of children, what's in the best interest of staff members and faculty, and parents as well. So
Okay.
that's a long answer to your question, but
No, that was good. You covered everything and more. I guess my one concern, and sorry, Andy, just as a follow-up to that, is that in consulting with the North Shore Health Department, they will not make a recommendation. They will provide guidance, right? And that has left us to make our own, opinion about everything. And I just wonder, or want to put it out there, whether we might consider relying on some other experts who would make a recommendation, whether that's a consultant or epidemiologist or public health experts. I don't know. I've heard other districts have used consultants. I know other districts have committees or task force made up of medical and public health professionals. I don't want to necessarily prolong this process and include another committee like that. But I just wonder if, we could seek that type of advice or consulting somehow in this process where we may have folks who are willing to sort of vary to give us that recommendation, which I know the North Shore Health Department cannot do.
Yeah.
So Andy, go ahead if you have.
My key issues, I mean, we touched on a number of them, and I guess in no particular order, I'll throw a few things out. First, Dr. Moser, you mentioned the question of vaccinations. I guess that I would tie that into my follow-up on that, which is, teacher, I guess, state of mind. Do we have any idea at this point, if we were to reopen in the first week of March, if our teachers who wanted to get vaccinated would have that as an option? Also, I suppose, can we mandate that? And three is, just what's the barometer? What's the pulse on teachers returning? Are there teachers right now that we know who are willing to come back under reasonable circumstances?
well, I'll try to order those. I'll try to answer those. And if I miss something, I can't guarantee, nor could the North Shore Health Department guarantee, that the vaccines are going to be available. I asked if I, at age of 75, could get vaccinated right now, today. If I would be in that priority category, and they said they couldn't even guarantee for me that I could get a vaccine, that I could be vaccinated. So that issue is really, it's unfortunate. It's too bad. And but that is the status. The principals and the teacher leadership have recommended and asked that I lobby that the teachers would be moved to the front of the line when it comes to vaccination, and I have been doing that, and I will continue to do that. The issue of whether we can make it mandatory for faculty and staff to be vaccinated, I can't answer that. Nor can I answer the question, can we make it mandatory for students to be vaccinated? That I can't do either. What I can do is say that we will continue our planning process would seem to give us a better chance than in the North Shore or the Milwaukee area and or Wisconsin are having a better chance that the vaccinations will maybe available to make things safer for the reopening of school But I asked that question, Mr. Franklin of the North Shore, and they could not guarantee where the vaccination issue would be for us or anyone in Wisconsin.
All right. And I mean, in terms of, I guess, the pulse of the teaching and and really everyone, we have staff people. We put them first. We've, done everything that we could to, keep their considerations in mind. I think that it's really important to keep them, safe and healthy. Are we finding any serious resistance to doing this in our approach? Are we, finding that there are people who are open, given the fact I assume we're trying to be reasonable about how we're doing this?
Dr.
Principals, let me start, and then Anna, you correct me or help me.
Sure, I'd be happy.
Mr. Franklin, I will have to say that I was very pleased with the planning meeting on Friday that we had with the entire faculty and staff. The cooperation was great. I had a chance to sit in at each one of the meetings, and it was impressive what the facilitators and the chairs had done. I think I would be less than candid to say there's a level of apprehension. I think that word apprehension needs to be stated to the school board and to the parents of the community. And I think that's perfectly legitimate that there's a level of apprehension out there. Does that mean, though, that they're not cooperative and they're not professional as our professional staff, ranging from the administrators to the teachers to the staff members? They are being very professional about this, and they're approaching it in a very professional manner. So I am meeting, the Teacher Association has asked to meet with me this week over the issue of reopening, and I will do that. And the principals will be a part of that as well. So I'm going into it optimistic that as long as we are seeking input and guidance from the people who are actually going to be in the front lines and from the community, that there'll be a level of trust in us that we are going to make decisions in the best interest of the professionals that work with our children, the children, and the parents. So principals, can you help me? Did I say anything wrong, or did I miss anything?
I think you did a phenomenal job. And to Ms. Bailey's earlier question, she talked about data to support the decision-making process. And I do want to say that we are currently working on surveys that families as well as staff members will be receiving that addresses some of the same questions, President Franklin, that you talked about earlier, so that we will actually have hardcore data to be able to review and analyze when trying to make some of these difficult decisions.
Okay, and then if I can ask just a couple quick follow-ups, and then I think that's it, because I think it's about all that we have for the moment. I guess I'm concerned about identifying who wants to go into. We're going to recommend a back to school option, and we're going to keep virtual. And I think that we're pretty much coherent in that, because that's really been our dichotomy or our approach, since summer. What I want to make sure of is that we're not caught in an endless loop of surveys. I think surveys are important, but I think that it's important for us to work and create that option from the ground up, and present that alternative, which is really going back to school and having that one option versus the virtual. And not, I want to make sure we're not going around another round of endless surveys, because I heard a lot of criticism the first time around that we just got a lot of information and didn't know what to do with it. And I understand where that comes from. So I guess I just wanted to see, are we going to go forward and say, look, this is the option we're going to come, this is going to be the best option, this is going to be compatible with virtual, and then separately reach out to parents and say, look, if you want A, tell us, if you want B, tell us. Or, is there going to be some component of, public surveys that people should be aware about?
Well, your concern over surveys is legitimate. And keep in mind, we're not only, and I'll raise this concern also, because we're not only, we're not surveying over the reopening of schools, but remember, you're surveying also over the superintendent search. And there is a chance that we're going to overwhelm the staff, the faculty, the administrators, and the parents and the community, that we're going to end up having too many surveys. And that's a legitimate concern, Mr. Franklin, and we're cognizant of it. And to some degree, we're victims of the fact that we're doing an awful lot right now. There's a lot going on, and we have to try to protect everybody from trying to do too much. So your point is well taken, and we will take that into consideration, or we are. And unfortunately, and the board knows this, because you've directed me that I've got to do even more surveys with the superintendent search, and that's thank you.
Sure. And yeah, and by the way, just to put a plug in for next week, we expect that there's going to be community input sessions on the 21st, which is Thursday. I'm sorry if I'm mixing that up, but 21st and 22nd, which I know we're working on a schedule for right now, that are going to overlap with some of this. So we appreciate people's involvement and their attention, and we're going to be probably peppering people with a lot of requests for participation and input.
So and there will be more opportunities for us in the community to give our input as this process goes along, and we should probably keep moving through our agenda, but I want to first allow anybody who is on the call, if they would like to make any comments or ask any questions, if you could raise your hand and just, do they need to state their name and address for this, Andy?
They probably
Okay.
should.
Yes, and then please, if you can keep your comments concise, brief, under 3 minutes, that would be much appreciated. Again, remember, we'll have multiple opportunities to give input, so I'll give a little bit of time to see if anybody would like to comment, ask a question. If you could raise your hand. Okay, I see Jeff. Okay, see, oh, here we go. Few hands. Can we start with Jeff? I don't know if I can unmute Karin or if I need your help with this.
There we go. I think I'm good.
Oh, hi. Hello.
Hi, Jeff Hauk, 7265 North Wayside Court, Glendale, Wisconsin.
Okay.
We got I'm a parent of a 3rd and a 6th grader. I'll make it brief. One of the things that I am a proponent of giving families options to have a virtual or an in-person option. I won't go more into that. I've reached out to all the board members. They kind of know where some of my thoughts and concerns are on that. That being said, I do think that the district, while I appreciate the process of everything going through, I think there are a lot of things that can be done in terms of just the physical setup of the building that are going to need to be done no matter what. And I think we're even naive to the point where we're not going to need them in September. I just hope that the district doesn't wait to the point where it becomes February 20th and all of a sudden, now we're organizing desks. Do we have enough chairs? How are kids going to move in the hallway? What door is going to be the indoor for recess? What door is going to be the outdoor for recess? All of the little logistical things I'm hoping are either being accomplished, are accomplished, or are about to get accomplished, because I think if we can get those tick marks off, that's just another thing, because you guys are doing a ton of work and I don't fault anybody for any of that, but on the fact of, I just don't want to see us keep pushing down the road, because we're going to need these things at some point, no matter what. So I guess that's my urge to the district. And hopefully you do end up providing an option for both an in-person and a virtual option for those families that choose what's best for their families. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Okay, we have Beth Woodward.
Hi, I'm Beth Woodward of 5625 North Brayburn Lane. I'm a Glendale resident, a mom of a son at Glen Hills and at Nicolay, and I'm an employee of the district. And I was just saying, not to piggyback on your comment about surveying families too much, I do feel like there needs to be some early input in the planning process to know how many kids would be coming back. Because we really need to know for schedules and spacing things out and all of those safety protocols, like that needs to be an early piece of information. That's it. That's my piece.
Okay, thank you.
Point though. Thank you.
Yes. Catherine Steele. Catherine Steele has her hand.
Sorry,
No, you're
I have-
fine.
I have a new computer and I'm not sure how to use it. Okay. So I would just like to echo everything that was already said, especially agree with a lot of the things that Jeff was saying. I just was wondering, when the staff was questioned about some of their feelings last week, were they working under the original sort of goal plan, which is to bring back the younger students first? Because I know that's technically speaking one of the phases that is listed in your reopening plan. Sorry, I'm the mom of a K-5 student at Parkway, and my address is 2274 West Clubview Drive. Sorry, I forgot that part. But
Thanks.
but anyway, yeah, that's my concern, obviously, as a mother of a kindergarten student who is going through this all. That would be something that I would want to know the answer to. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Can anyone speak to her
Sure.
question? Okay, thank
Let
you.
me ask the principals if they can help me on that, Madam Chair.
Yes, so really the focus of our planning meeting with our staff, as we talked about wanting to replicate the same framework and foundation along that guiding question, which was really looking at if the Glendale-River Hills School District were to reopen for in-person learning, what considerations would need to be made. And so our conversation really focused around that, and then it looked at the different stakeholders and the different groups. So we not only ask the staff to reflect in regards to their feelings and ideas and perspectives as staff members, but also now, you know, what do you think families would say, and how do you think families would respond to some of these questions as well? So getting them to think about it from a parent perspective as well.
Thank you. I guess I would add, my assumption here is that as we go back and look at input and data and feedback, that sort of everything is on the table in terms of reviewing our reopening plan now that we have that more data. So if that helps at all, you know, Catherine, I think, I don't know, that's just my 2 cents. So okay, Tracy Belfus.
Very close. Tracy Bilefus.
So sorry, and I know
No,
we've talked.
you
so
have a last name like that. You just learned to answer.
Bilefus.
So my address is 4835 North Navajo in Glendale. I am the mom of a 6th grader at Glen Hills. And first, I'd like to say a huge thank you for the work. It is relieving to hear that there is planning going on in place. My concern being that maybe this should have been happening since September so that we weren't at this point and aiming toward a 3rd trimester, because we are 2 days away from it being 10 months that these kids haven't been in school. And it will be probably a year before they are. And as a mom, that is the single hardest thing I've done. I've been a mom for 11 and a half years now. But with that said, I'm also a teacher in the Wauwatosa School District, and we have been hybrid since September. And last week we returned full 5 days. So I would like to echo a lot of what Jeff said, that a lot of this planning and a lot of these things that we need to put in place can't wait. They need to be set up immediately so that when the time comes that mercifully the decisions made that our students can return, that they're ready to do that, that we don't prolong it longer. And then also in reading a lot of the questions and concerns of the staff members, I would like to advocate that a lot of those things are things we went through as a staff in September, and we've been working through since September. So you have a lot of resources, having been virtual this entire time, in our surrounding districts and nearby districts to lean on. And please consult those districts, I'm here to talk about, my experience having taught live now since September, and gosh, the benefits that's been for my students has been amazing. And Dr. Moser, I spoke today with Dr. Ertl, and he said that he knows you well. So I'm sure, and thinks very highly of you, would love to.
Thank you very much. I think
Thank
the
you.
same about him, yes.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
Yes.
I tried to convince him that a smaller district, because he's announced his retirement, would be a good fit, but
He can apply. He can certainly apply.
he didn't bite. I'm like, it's just 2 schools, but no. He didn't. So
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. Appreciate your comments. And I see one more hand. I believe it's Anne Ledbetters.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. I wanted to comment on the COVID vaccine. So you.
Sorry, could you
had
state
asked-
your name and address first, please?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Thank you.
My name's Ann Ledbetter. I live at 710 West Fairfield, and I have a 6th grader.
Thank you.
So the COVID vaccine cannot be made mandatory. It's an emergency use authorization, so it can't be required of staff. I think that it would be wise of you to do a survey of your staff to see what % would accept it. That might give you some more information about, the safety of reopening. When Danielle was talking, if I understood correctly, I think you were saying, Danielle, that the data you were looking for was more of a public health variety, not so much just survey data, or was I missing?
Yes. No. And I think it's been addressed by administrators that will be
there are a lot
part
of
it.
resources. Okay, yeah, it's hard because there are a lot of resources out there, and I think ultimately people, including myself, tend to find the data that most suits their, opinion on the issue of school opening. That being said, we do, having been virtual this long, have the benefit, like Tracy was saying, about, there have been schools operational for months now, and there's a COVID dashboard for schools run by Emily Oster out of Brown we can use. There's Harvard Public Health. I believe I sent the school board a link to their advice on it. And if we use those resources, I think it'll help, because at the end of the day, there's people who feel strongly that they want to open and have in-person school, and there's people who feel strongly that they don't. And it sounds like our school district is already poised to give both of those options. So I guess I don't really know what we're waiting for in terms of data before we make that decision.
Thank you. I would just say, I don't know that we're waiting for data. I think that as part of this process, there seems to be a consensus that we will utilize that data along with the feedback. If that's inaccurate, someone can correct me, but okay. I do not see any other hands at this time, so we appreciate all the comments. And again, there will be future opportunities to keep asking questions and providing feedback. If there's no objection, I'd say we move on to item B, 2020-2021 weather days. I believe
Thank you,
Ms.
Madam
Umar.
Chair.
Yep.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Go ahead.
Thank you. First of all, on item 1 on the reopening of school, good discussion. Thank you to the individuals who made comment, and to the members of the curriculum committee. It's very helpful. I am, with your permission, Madam Chair, to call upon Ms. Umar to give us a report on what we're going to do in the Glendale-River Hills School District concerning 2021 weather days. Ms. Umar?
Yes, so the decision for the weather days would be to move to an asynchronous learning day. There was a lot that was considered in the decision-making process. We had the opportunity to gather input from staff in both buildings. I am just briefly displaying a Jamboard that just shows some of our questions and considerations in regards to considerations for staff, for families, for daycares that may close in the event of inclement weather, and what would be the most equitable thing to do. And so our staff landed on asynchronous learning days. We presented this in the listening sessions that Dr. Moser hosted with the community as well. And we are moving forward in that direction. This is a brief sample of what a weather day checklist may look like. There are some grade level learning opportunities for students to engage in, things like independent reading or writing a story, or perhaps completing some Dreambox lessons. And students will also be encouraged to take advantage of the weather day activities, for example, building a snowman and spending time with siblings. This is just a sample. Grade level teams are collaborating this week to create their weather day checklists, and they will be reviewing these with students and showing students how to access these in the event of a weather day.
Okay, so could I just ask, because I know you mentioned equity and we talked about this last time, so I know we've considered this. So the asynchronous tasks that would be assigned to students, I would ask, like, would they be graded? You know, are students going to be penalized if they're not going to be able to complete these tasks for whatever reason?
No, we will follow the same protocol that we use for our Friday asynchronous instruction. So we have some frameworks in place to ensure that students are fairly assessed, and things like sharing in the morning meeting, you know, the next day will be activities, but students will not be penalized. For example, if they leave their Chromebook at the daycare, right, they can't do the Dreambox lessons, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's absolutely a part of our consideration.
Okay, great.
Yeah, Madam Chair, Mr. Franklin, I'll have to admit, during the holiday break when we had a snowstorm, it woke me up. And I realized that I'm in Wisconsin and that we'd better get information out to our constituents on weather days, that it's going to happen. And so we've already communicated this information to the parents and to the staff and faculty, and we'll continue to communicate this to them so they understand. Even though I can hope, does anyone believe me if I say we won't have any weather days in the school district? I don't know if anyone's going to believe me if I say that. I can say it all I want, but when I woke up and I asked for help from the administrators, we put together a pretty good concept of how to deal with our weather days rather than snow days, even though well, weather days covers everything. So
Okay. Andy, we good to move on? Yep. Okay, well, if there's nothing further, we can move on to item C, approve continuation of shared services agreement.
thank you, Madam Chair, Mr. Franklin. We are presently this year in a shared services agreement with the Fox Point Bayside School District and the Mapledale Indian Hill School District concerning nursing services. You heard during the presentation by the principals about the role of our nursing services. I will not be recommending the continuation of this shared services agreement. I will not. I've been in contact with the superintendents and staff from the other two school districts, and they are going in another direction on their nursing services, and that will mean we will too. So I will not tonight ask you for approval of the continuation of the services. We need nursing services. We do need them, especially this seems to be foolish during the pandemic and the COVID. I'm coming to you to say we're not going to continue the shared services. We're just going to pursue it in a different manner.
Okay, And I assume that you'll present on that at a future either board or curriculum meeting?
I would hope, after I speak in more detail to the principals, to Dr. Kilton, that I may, as early as the January Personnel and Finance Committee, which is chaired by Mr. Franklin, I may have a recommendation for us at that time. I have to have a recommendation on that particular agreement by February 15th. So it would seem that if I can do planning and communication with my colleagues, we'll have something yet this month.
Okay, so I just want to make sure I'm clear. So the nurse will not be continued and the German teacher will not as well, or both, or split?
No,
And
if I may, and I apologize. I did speak with Dr. Kabara, the superintendent of schools, Nicolay, today. And we will want to continue the shared services agreement with Nicolay concerning the German services. Those are going well. And Nicolay is the holder of that contract. We're the holder of the contract for the nursing. And it's the nursing. I didn't make that clear, but it's the nursing that we will, I will not, I do not want to continue those services.
did
That-
Bachman Bayside, I'm sorry. Did Bachman Bayside Mapledale give a reason? I mean, because I can only think of one or two scenarios, right? One is we share a nurse, and two is that we don't. I mean, are they saying they want a full-time person, or are they trying to buy into some service?
Fox Point Bayside is going to go off, and at least they're considering going off and hiring their own nurse, in contract with their own nurse. And Mapledale Indian Hill wants to contract with CISA 1 for the services. So they want to go in two different directions. And what we're going to do, I don't know, but going back to Ms. Bailey's, Chair Bailey's question, I should know better by Thursday, and we may have that on the agenda, Mr. Frank, on your agenda, on how to deal with that by that time.
Okay. Do we need to take an action then now? Do we need to move anything forward, or is this just become discussion now?
There's no action needed at this time.
Okay,
If there is going to be action taken, I would think it will need to be in personnel concerning a personnel contract.
okay. All right, then let's move to item D, securely parent portal and 24 options.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Franklin, we have been discussing with the curriculum committee securely, the concept of the securely parent portal and the 24 option. And I'm gonna, Jenica, are you on the scene?
Yeah,
Ms. Westfall?
yes, Anna and I are gonna work this out together.
Okay, so Madam Chair, may I call upon Ms. Young, Principal Young, and Ms. Westfall to, they're the gurus on securely, so.
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Okay.
Do you want to share your screen, Anna? You're muted.
I'm having just a slight technical difficulty here, so just give me one moment, please.
Okay, if not, I can pull it up.
Let me just see if I can get this to cooperate with me again. Aha, I got it.
You got it? Okay.
I'm a little slow here. So just to catch you up on Securely, we have worked with the Securely company to get started at Glen Hill, the idea of Securely for parents and guardians. Securely is a artificial intelligence monitoring system, essentially, that basically monitors different language that students use, and it surveys that language and uses an algorithm to be able to code it to notify, at this point in time, the student services staff and myself if there are any traces of bullying, self-harm, or suicidal ideation. That way, as an administrator or student services staff, we can intervene by reaching out to the family and to the student to make sure that we are offering a level of support and care. So what Securely for Parents and Guardians will do is it will provide an opportunity for parents to be able to also have the same monitoring feature for their child only. So what that would mean is that they will have the opportunity to monitor what their child sees and what sites they're visiting, and also if there are any flagged alerts. I am hoping that my sound will work, and there is a short video here that will talk a little bit through what will happen for families as they watch or as they move into the Securely parent portal.
Every time a school chooses Securely, a multi-layered digital defense is put in place. That's why we're so excited your school has chosen Securely and entrusted your child's online safety with us. Whenever your student is on their school device, we are at work behind the scenes, protecting them from inappropriate content and flagging activities that could point to self-harm or bullying. Think of us as an extra set of eyes looking out for them in the digital world. In an effort to make your child's online experience as positive as possible, we're now making it easy for parents to be looped in too. Upon downloading the Securely Home app, you will have the ability to view a live feed of your child's online activity, including what sites they are visiting and searches they are making. You'll even have the option to enable push notifications and receive alerts for any flagged activities, such as self-harm or bullying. And the Securely Home features don't stop when your child leaves school. If your school allows access, the app also makes it possible for you to set your own device rules when the device is at home and pause the internet if you need to. Be sure to keep an eye out for the Securely Welcome email containing the Securely Home app download link and instructions for getting started. We will also provide you with a weekly email including a snapshot of your child's online activity. Thank you for allowing us to be part of keeping your students safe online. We look forward to partnering with you in this pursuit.
So we will be sending a parent letter home via Infinite Campus to all of our Glen Hills families who will have the opportunity to read information about how to download the app with instructions and video instructions. And then what will happen is they will get a generated email by Securely that will give them directions for joining the app and linking their child up to it. At that point in time, parents will have the ability to utilize many of the features that were in the video, including the ability to observe what their children are looking up on a frequent basis, where they're spending their time, as well as alerts and being able to control some of what is accessed at home. So the missing piece that we discussed as a team in looking at this is that we know that during school hours, our teachers have a Hapara system, which is another system where they can watch what their classroom students are doing. But we also have the Securely system in place in which the administrators and student services staff are receiving alerts. We know that at home, if parents choose, they can download the app and they can also see what is happening with their students. But there is a missing piece in this, and that includes the times in which we are out of school. It includes holidays and breaks in which students are not present in school. During these times, we know that there can be an increase or spike in some social emotional needs of students, and we know that they may be searching things that an administrator or student services staff might not see. What Securely 24 does is it basically is in a 24-hour service in which they are able to have people examine these flagged activities that come up, and they would have a call command that would go home or come to the school. So they would have like my number, student services numbers, so they could contact somebody from the school to try to work with us to get in touch with parents to help with student needs. So the way that this is done is they have artificial intelligence, but it is human enhanced. So they have 24/7 analysis by actual humans who can take a look at it and determine the depth of risk based on what they're seeing. So there's kind of an analytical human eye on that as well. What they look at is the escalation process. So what they try to find out is this a one-off search? Does it look like the student may be doing research around suicide prevention? Or does it actually look like the student may be obsessed with looking up information about suicidal ideation? And then what they would do is execute the action plans that we develop with them as a district. So they would have a chain of command in which they would reach out to student services, to myself. And then if we were not available, they would reach out to local police or EMT services to follow up with families. Jenica, do you want to add in any other components of this?
No, I think just so keeping in mind that the parent portal is, one service, we're talking about possibly adding that 24. 24 is a paid service, so there would be additional funding needed for that. It's about an additional $4,000 per year. So that would be, an additional fee, but it also provides us with some additional support to make sure that, that missing piece like Anna talked about, so that we don't have any issues or problems, and let something slide through the crack or not be there to support a student. So I think it is pretty important to really think about possibly adding this.
Jenica?
Yes.
So there's the home service and then the 24. How much is the home service?
The home service doesn't have a fee.
Oh, okay.
We already have Securely, so this is just adding the app. So that is, there's no additional fee for that, and that could be rolled out right away.
Okay.
I think having that discussion around the 24 is an important discussion to have. It will affect the budget, but it also gives us protection too, in a lot of ways that, if one of us is not available to get, a phone call or see an alert, if we're on vacation too, as the people who are getting some of these alerts for Securely, it gives us that layer of protection to have somebody always watching it and making sure that we're keeping our kids safe.
Mm-hmm.
Let me just ask, what's being recommended right now is at no cost to the district?
It's twofold. The parent portal is no cost to the district. Adding the 24, which is that service that goes around the clock and it notifies us if there is a risk, that service does have a fee to it.
And what is that fee? Okay, so I'm looking at the recommendation here. So I was confused for a moment, but so you're asking us to adopt both. What is the cost for the 24 option?
4,000.
It's about 4,000. It's like $5.13 per student.
Okay, and then I'm just curious, do we know how they use the data besides working with us? I mean, is there any, license? I'm just curious, if you're doing a mass downloading, for, 1,000 kids, and you're basically charging $4 a kid, for a school year. I mean, and by the way, is that an annual cost or is that a one-time cost?
That's annual.
So I'm just curious. I mean, if there's, what people, I think it's an important tool. Don't get me wrong. And Nicolay, they use Securely. And frankly, it's nice to get those reports. I think that there's something good about it. And I also think that with respect to the goals that we're trying to achieve, I think it's an important thing to do. I'm just curious, if there's any sensitive data that gets collected and what they do with it.
That I'm not sure on, to be honest. I can't see that they would be. I mean, they're a reputable company. They follow HIPAA rules and all of that. So I can't see them necessarily sharing that, but that's something I can find out.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the action here, Dr. Moser, correct me if I'm wrong, is that we've got to just, and we probably did a little bit out of step, but we have to make a motion to recommend this goes to the full board.
Mhm.
But assuming that that's what the action is, I have no problem taking this to the board, but I'd love to see, you know, what they get to do with the data that they collect.
Sure.
And those, you know,
We'll find that out.
Yep.
Yeah.
We did meet Ms. Westfall, and Principal Young and I met with our attorney to discuss any legal aspects to this. That was not one of the questions that we raised, any liability issues, but we will find it out. And yes, Mr. Franklin, that was going to be my next, if the committee so desires, I was going to ask the chair if the committee would entertain a motion to move this to the full board for approval on the 20th, but we'll have that answer to your question.
And I have no problem making that motion.
Okay.
So moved.
Second. So we will present that recommendation to the board at our next meeting. Thank you for that presentation. So moving on to item E is K4 registration 2021-22 school year.
I will, I hate to say this here. I said earlier, I woke up, I think I'm gonna wake up again. I can't remember, Ms. Umar, or are you gonna do this one, or Dr. Smith?
We're actually going to co-present with Mallory really taking more of the facilitation lead, but I will chime in as well. But what I would like to just begin by sharing with all of you is that historically, we've had a registration process that's been in place for a number of years that didn't necessarily reflect the diversity of our school community and a sense of inclusiveness when you look at some of the forms that families were being asked to complete. And so Mallory really did spearhead a task of meeting with our secretary, Miss Laura Andriotti, and together, the two of them spent time collaborating and really reviewing all of the forms and making some edits and some additions to the forms. And then Mallory also had the opportunity to meet with several other groups who she's going to talk about during her presentation. So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Mrs. Umar.
Thank you. So I will jump right in and speak briefly, as I know that we have other meetings to attend. K4 registration week will be February 8th through February 11th this year. This is a shift from what we typically run as a registration day. And so we are excited about offering a larger window of opportunity for families to come in, bring in documents, and have the opportunity to work within their busy schedules. We are offering online and in-person registration options. There are some pieces of the K4 registration, for example, bringing in a certified birth certificate that needs to happen in person, or that families may not feel comfortable with sending electronically. And so I do want to point out that having those online and in-person options are important. We will be offering daytime and evening hours to accommodate diverse family schedules. It is important to note that families can register for K4 at any time of the school year, just like all of our students. But the information that we gather during this initial registration period is important because it provides us with information that we need for future planning in many areas. The K4 registration letter is mailed to families. We have some public community data available to us for families who have a 4-year-old in the house. The mailing will begin on January 22nd, inviting families to come in. We had the opportunity to make some changes and examine our registration letter. first interrogating it for inclusive language, there have been a number of shifts that we have made to this letter, including changing some language. For example, parents changed to families, or son or daughter changed to child, his or her changed to their. And so those are some shifts that we made. I would like to note that we do have some concerns about some of the forms that are required for registration. However, from my understanding, those are not forms that we generate. Those are forms that are required. And so there's some language on there that I want to share that we are aware of. However, we have made the changes to the cover letter that we do generate. We also have modified the letter to reflect COVID-19 safety protocols. For example, that explanation of the option for online and in-person registration, and also a description of safety protocols that we expect for our staff members and families to follow while in the building. Typically during this time, we give a school tour. We will shift that to a virtual tour. We'll create a QR code that will allow families to see pictures, a combination of pictures and videos of the school, at least in the temporary, and revisit the possibility for tours at a later time. When our families come, they also receive a registration gift, for example, a student book. And we have a plan for some Parkway swag that new families who are registering for the district can pick up so that they have something with the Glendale-River Hills or Parkway logo. We also are planning on shifting our spring K-4 event. Typically, there is sort of an open house that happens in May, and so that will be planned for a virtual event. We do want to make sure that our community is aware that we are doing registration, not only for K4, but also for K5 and other grade levels. And so we have a plan to communicate to our current families to partner with local businesses to advertise on different Glendale social media sites, connect with childcare centers, as well as display a banner just to let families know that we are registering for the upcoming school year. We would also like to recommend that the tab for student registration is accessible immediately visibly on the Glendale website, perhaps by putting a new student registration tab right next to that virtual learning tab, and making sure that we have an enrollment graphic, which Ms. Karin did create for us today, and that's displayed on the site as well. Also posting K4 registration week on our district calendar so that it comes up in the upcoming events section. We want families to be able to access this information easily. Those are our plans for K4 registration. If you have any questions or feedback, we are open to suggestions.
That all looks great to me. I would just ask, the forms that we don't generate where we have concerns about inclusivity, who does generate them?
We are investigating that now.
Okay, because I'm happy to help in terms of lobbying, advocating as well for inclusive language. I've been doing that for quite a while now. So if you want to loop me in, I'm happy to help if you need it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't see any other, all right, comments. Great. We can, I believe, move to item F, forward testing for the 2021 school year.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Franklin, earlier in the committee meeting, I mentioned that we are embarking on a number of activities. The teachers, the administrators have a full plate. And they have a full plate now, but that plate is going to get even, I'm not sure this is a correct grammatical statement, but it's going to get fuller as we move into the end of January, February, and March. Another item that is a very big issue for the school district is forward testing for the 2021 school year. And Ms. Westfall is able to update us on what we're looking forward to concerning our forward testing. So, Ms. Westfall?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Moser. I'm just going to share my screen here. Okay. All right, so thinking about state testing, just recently I was at a district assessment coordinator meeting, and it was discussed that we will be moving forward with state testing for the 2021 school year with our with forward testing. They did have the caveat, though, that with some changes in administration federally, that there is a possibility that this may be waived. So with that said, we still need to do the planning as if this is moving forward. So I just wanted to throw that in there. So just a little review on forward exam, if this is new for anybody. It is a test that really gauges where our students are at in relationship to the Wisconsin academic standards. It really makes sure that our kids are able to be college and career ready. It is a high quality research-based online assessment that meets Wisconsin's expectations of those standards. So it is customized as well each year with a team of Wisconsin educators who do help add questions, review it, and then make adjustments to it. So this is a test that's given yearly every spring, and it needs to be given in person. So I want to be very clear about that, that it needs to be given in person. So it is a test that we do online utilizing a Chromebook or a laptop or a computer, but it must be given in person. So even if we are virtual, as we are in our virtual learning model right now, we would need to bring students into the buildings to take this assessment. So grades 3 through 8 take an English language arts test and a mathematics test. Students in 4th grade and 8th grade only do a science and social studies assessment. So some of the updates that were shared is the testing window has changed a little. So the testing window has been extended. So our testing window now is March 22nd through April 14th. So they added a couple weeks on the front end of our normal testing window to provide more time to get kids into the buildings and just make that process a little easier for schools. Another update on the test is that they reduced some of the testing time. And they did some of this by removing an item. So what they ended up doing was removing the writing portion of the test. So every year we do a text dependent analysis. So every student in 3rd grade through 8th grade participates in this, and they removed that item from the test. They also removed a lot of the field questions. So those are the questions that were created after the review last year. Well, I should say the year before. They removed all those field test questions that were created. So they did that in math and in science. Okay. So moving forward, just kind of an update on where we're at as a district is that myself, as the district assessment coordinator, and building principals, who are those school assessment coordinators, we are going to review a document that came out from DPI. It's called Strategies and Considerations for In-Person Assessment During a Pandemic. So it's a nice little handbook, almost similar to the roadmap that DPI put out for reopening schools. And it gives us just some different focus areas to really help with our planning moving forward. Moving forward, it's hard to say, moving forward with forward. I'm clapping you, Dr. Moser. So some of the focus areas were really preparing for the assessment, right? So we need to look at our scheduling, preparing the school, alternate testing environments, testing space preparation, technology. So all those considerations need to be looked at. We also need to prepare our staff, our students, and our family, and provide clear communication on that and clarity. And then we have to determine considerations for administration. So we have to be thinking about what materials are going to be used. What is health and safety protocols going to look like for this? And then transportation. As a district, will need to provide transportation for students if they are to come into the buildings. So that's just another piece to that. So and then we'll be looking at forming some building teams to help guide some of this decision-making and the planning process. And then also, along with the forward testing, we do have access testing as well for our EL students. So this window also has been extended. So this one is February 22nd to the 30th. The interesting thing about this is that they created an online assessment for them. So our coordinator who does this work will be doing the training for the online assessment. So any questions around that? So this information just came out, so we haven't dug into it yet, but I'd be happy to answer anything I can.
Jenica, I guess the question I had is, and I wonder if the handbook you got addresses that, like where we have students who say are high risk and will refuse to come in. Does it address that in terms of how we might accommodate those situations? Or maybe you don't know yet, but I guess that would be a question that I have.
Parents you can opt out. So there is that option, but I think we would really have to some of it is at the district's discretion. So we would really have to look into some of that to see exactly what we could do. For students definitely who are high risk, like would it be an alternative place to do the, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay. Well, I find it disheartening that we're being forced to move forward with standardized testing of our students during a pandemic when there's so much you guys are dealing with and our students are dealing with. So I will hope optimistically for that waiver, but yeah.
I'm the messenger.
I know. I don't see any questions or comments from the public. I don't know about you, Andy.
I just echo what you said. I mean, it is an odd moment to be pushing.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I assume we'll stay posted.
Yeah, we'll update. This could be an updated, maybe we can bring this back possibly.
Yeah.
To the meeting. That sounds good.
Okay. All right.
Well,
we should move to item 3, visitor participation. We still have a few folks who've stuck with us. If anybody would like to participate, comment on a non-agenda item at this time, state law under board policy may limit our response. I would invite you to raise your hand and do so. I'll give you just a moment to consider. I'm not seeing anything. Okay, well, I know we are running over. I had wanted to participate as a visitor, as a community member, and make just a sort of concise, hopefully brief statement. I apologize, but I just really feel like this is a good forum to address this right now, and I'd like to just do that. So taking my school board hat off and just quickly wanting to address administrators and any folks sort of left in here. But I just wanted to speak as a community member, as a mom who is raising biracial children in our district, and just take a moment to talk about what happened Wednesday at our Capitol, where we saw, a mob, a majority of white people, emboldened by hate and racism, lay siege to our Capitol, to other state capitals. What I saw was traumatizing, was triggering, and I think it was probably that way for a lot of folks to watch that violence be inflicted with little to no accountability, and then continuing to observe media coverage of the event, where there's a deafening silence around sort of collective pain and grief that people are experiencing right now, is compounding the trauma, especially for Black folks, Indigenous folks, people of color. And it's within that context that I guess I just want to express my profound hope that district leaders right now are taking time to make space for our teachers, for our staffs, for our students, and themselves to sort of process, to grieve, to talk about, to understand this sort of long and troubling history of which this, again, not shocking to me, but sort of repulsive event was born. And I hope that we're seeking ways to support each other in our community, especially our young people, our students. I know that there's a ton of resources that have proliferated online about how we can talk to students of all ages about this. So I hope we are utilizing these. And then as a parent and as a school board member, I just want to keep pushing us and pushing myself to understand how we are teaching our students about this sort of nuanced and complicated history. of our country in a way that it's honest, that's holds space for multiple narratives, that does not center whiteness at its core, that is not an idealized version of our history. And I feel like this is an ultimate charge, is our ultimate charge in educating our young people today so that they'll really be, global citizens of the world. And I guess I felt like this was a good place for me to sort of publicly state my commitment to that. I think the curriculum, committee is a good place for us to recognize that. And I want to make sure that we are not a district that just says we value certain things like diversity, equity, and inclusion, but I want to see us be actively and openly anti-racist in our actions and our principles in our curriculum. And that should inform what this committee and our district does. I know I'm not alone in this desire within our community and amongst you all as leaders, but again, I just sort of felt compelled to make my commitment known publicly and share that with you guys. So.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I mean, I think it was just, it encapsulates everything. And I know that we all share in the shock and outrage, and we're all very much impacted in unique ways, frankly. So I recognize, the pain that you must be going through. It's, not something that I walk, in your shoes, but I think that the key to a lot of what ails us is communication and understanding.
Yeah.
And I just appreciate you taking time to share that.
Yeah. And so I just feel motivated to keep pushing us to use this moment, not as one to necessarily be pessimistic or depressed, but to sort of motivate us to keep doing more, doing better. So that is the end of my visitor participation. Thank you for listening. And I don't see any more. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Andy.
I was just gonna say, I mean, when you were done, I would move for a motion to adjourn.
Yes. And quickly, does anyone need a break before we move into our next meeting? I've informed, okay, so should we take 5 minutes? I've informed Teresa and other committee members, and we can open that meeting in 5 minutes.
Perfect.
Okay, then I would second the motion to adjourn, and thank you all so much, and we are adjourned. Yes, right?
Thank you.
Okay, all right.